Hey Guitar Heroes, welcome back to day 6 of the Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero 30-day challenge. Now, obviously, if you've been paying attention, you can tell this has taken a little longer than 30 days. If you want more information about what happened, jump into my school classroom, skool.com/Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero. You can jump into the community right now for $1. That's going up here soon. Right now, it's an international community. I've got students from all over the U.S. and all over the world in there, and we're having a great time just talking about guitar and music, and I'd love to have you just come in and join us and be a part of what's going on. There's free resources, a beginner course, other material, free coaching a couple times a week, PDFs and ebooks and things. There's all kinds of stuff in there for you. Come check it out. I'd love to have you be a part of it. The song for today that we're talking about is obviously Hey Joe, as recorded by Jimi Hendrix. Now, there was actually an earlier version now, so we know now that it was written by Billy Roberts, but it was a long story and a contested idea about who actually originally came up with this song. At one point, it was considered public domain. The song was getting passed around in the Greenwich Village folk scene and even in the garage rock scene out in San Francisco. And David Crosby and other people like that thought that it just was a song that they could grab a hold of and do something with. But later on, Billy Roberts finally came out of the shadows and said, wait a minute, guys, I actually composed this song. This is actually my song. One of the tracks actually that I heard of the main recording of this track that Billy Roberts did, I want to say in like 1963 or 64 or so, you can hear a lot of the same licks that Jimmy is playing in his version, and I think he took a lot of those ideas from Billy, but not to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Jimi Hendrix obviously took this tune to a whole other level, both in the chordal approach that he took, and especially that guitar solo. And in fact, that version of the guitar solo, I might release other versions of my solo. My version of that solo, one of them was pretty much note for note spot on. This last one, I improvised a little bit. Hope you'd enjoyed it. Anyway, let's dig in. Let's actually dig into this song. There's a few main things I want you to get. And being that we're in this 30-day challenge, each day on this 30-day challenge, we talk about a song, a technique. There's usually a warm-up, and then there's usually some sort of mindset hack. All right. In today's lesson, we've got basically 5 chords. We've got C, G, D, A, and E. Now these chords actually provide the blueprint for what is referred to as the CAGED method. There's a lot of discussion online about whether this method is valid or not, and there's both pros and cons to it, as with anything else. One of my favorite guitar players, a jazz guitar player by the name of Joe Pass, used it in his playing and in his instructional material, and I'm a big fan of his. I'm also a big fan of Rick Beato, and Rick Beato talks about Joe Pass quite a bit. And anyway, so if it was good enough for Joe Pass, it's good enough for me. It's not the be-all, end-all in guitar theory, if you will, but it's certainly useful and has its useful contexts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're mostly going to spend a lot of time on this song by as recorded by Jimmy. Okay, now even that opening line that he starts out with, actually you can hear it if you go back and find the Billy Roberts recording. Maybe I'll put a link in the description for it. You can hear basically that same riff. Basically this, we talked about in the last 2 days of the 30-day challenge. If you go back and watch those, you'll see that we talked about the E minor pentatonic scale, which is a 5-note scale. All right. And there is an extended version of that same scale that instead of just being here, that scale just being here, you can actually extend it from the 2nd fret on the G string to the 4th fret, and then 3rd and 5th frets on the B string, and 3rd and 5th frets on the high E string. And we've even talked about this a little bit for the Susie Q riff that we were talking about before in one of the previous lessons. And there's which is an old Muddy Waters riff, right? Well, Jimmy and Billy Roberts both use this idea in the intro to the song. And it's really, so what you do is you slide from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret on the B string while leaving the E string open. So there's a pedal note against it. Okay, you slide up to the 5th, back to the 3rd, and then take the 2nd finger and slide up to the 4th on the G. So, and actually really what I do is I slide from the 4th to the 2nd. Okay, but I try to land on the 3rd finger on the D string 2nd fret so I can form that E chord right away. And then I just break up that E chord from the E string to the D string to the top 3, back to the low E. And then there's this little inverted power chord riff. Okay, and really what I'm doing is I'm barring across the 4th fret on the A and D strings, and 3rd finger is on the 6th fret of the G, and I'm sliding from that chord to this chord. It's really an F sharp to a G power chord with the 5th in the bass, and I'm alternating the low E, and then this. By the way, when you get to this, This is really an E power chord, really powerful E power chord. And then we go up to this little pattern up here that to me is a little bit out of character for the rest of the song, but again, I think Jimmy kind of got this idea from Billy Roberts. So, although it's really also similar to a lot of the Curtis Mayfield stuff that we're going to talk about later, that Jimmy was well known for. But basically, you're barring across the 7th fret and the D, G, and B strings. It's part of a D triad, second inversion, and then you're going to take that first finger and actually it's the first finger on the D, and you're going to hammer from the first finger to the third finger, from the 7th fret to the 9th fret, while holding down the other two strings on the G and B string 7th fret. Usually when I pick this, I pick down up. Okay. And then we go right into the chord. Now usually Jimmy will go to a chord like this, which is a power chord or a bar chord, which is really based on the A chord. We're going to get into these in a minute. But for today, I want you to focus on, I want you to get these 5 chords: C, G, D, A, and E. Okay? All right. Now when I go from the C, we talked about the C chord in the last lesson, the CCR tune, which actually was it was also another cover tune, Susie Q, right? But one of the chords in that is the C chord, and then to the G. This is kind of like the country G. So that's the way I consider it. It's the second finger on the A string, the 2nd fret, second finger, and then third finger, the 3rd fret on the low E, and pinky, the 3rd fret of the high E. You can also do this G or this G. By the way, this G is going to go really well. It's 4-finger G. It's going to go really well to the D chord because I leave that 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the D string. Okay, and then I go to the A by sliding the 3rd fret, 3rd finger to the 2nd fret on the B string. We talked about that for Rumble, the previous day's challenge. And then I go to the E chord. So I go C, G, D, A, E. Now the strumming is there's a lot of variety to the strumming throughout the tune, but the way that I always have done it, especially when teaching this to other people, is I have a basic strum of down, 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 up, down, 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 up. This is one way you can practice rhythms, just laying your fingers across the strings by deadening them, not pushing anything down, and you can just focus just on the rhythm, the right hand, or if you're left-handed, the other way around, like Jimmy. But so down, 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 up, down, 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 up. Right? So each of these chords, C, G, D, and A, are half a measure each. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we get to the E chord, and we are going to do a down, 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 up, 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 down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, up. Now, if you want more information about strumming patterns and how to play and read and write rhythms, there's information about it in my classroom on school, skool.com/Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero. Check it out there. Free resources are available for you. And you can come in and actually ask me questions too. It's part of the great thing about, and you get to be with the community with other people that get to talk about guitar. It's kind of a really cool thing. All right, so enough about that. Okay, so we've got the C, sometimes Jimmy will literally just go down, 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 or down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay. Now, there's a lot of those licks that we talked about, like this, those kinds of licks come in later, or variations on those. And he'd like to do the hammer-on pull-off thing that was really popular with him. Right? And so that's just hammering it on and pulling off. So honestly, this can be a warm-up. Consider this to be warm-up 1A. And you can do it almost without a pick, right? Just with your fingers. It takes a while to develop the ability to do that, and if you have to in the beginning, just use your pick for hammer on and a pull off. Now when I pull off, one of the common misconceptions of the pull off is you just lift your finger. You actually pull down a little bit without activating the string underneath. Okay, and then that third fret, low E string G, we talked about that in the last two songs also. It's just a very bluesy thing to do. So this song is no exception for that. Another one of the very common riffs for this in the song, it's like an old Muddy Waters riff, or it starts to sound like another song by Led Zeppelin, right? Yeah, we'll come back to that at a later time. But so this is just second fret on the A string, open D, back to the second fret on the A, open D, and then second fret on the D. B, D, B, D, E. Or you can actually do a variation on that. Open G to D, second fret on the D, the E note. Now, yes, this song really is in the key of E, but use that G sometimes, and because it's going back to the whole idea of blues and rock and how blues influenced rock music, especially in this era in the 60s, and the idea that you can use a little bit of major and minor in the blues context, and that goes back a long ways. It adds to the sound of the music and the culture of the music. Okay, so that same thing here on the 7th fret of the low E. By the way, there's a sort of a general rule here to be found that if I can play a note on the 2nd fret of one string, A string, for example, and then I can go up 5 frets on the string that comes before it, in this case, low E, same note, that's a B note. We can do B, 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 or you can do B, 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 G, come up to that G 5th fret on the D, E 7th fret on the A. Now, again, 2nd fret on the D, E, it's an E note, and 7th fret on the A, same note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets away. And that works on most of the strings, except for when you get between the B and the G strings, because they're tuned in thirds. All the other strings are tuned in fourths, okay? Again, there's more information about this in my classroom in school, but all right, so we're going to get into these chords a little bit more. I'm just showing you some fun riffs that you can do, and you can alternate these little riffs. Okay. Another thing you can do on these chords, on the E, you can add an E7, like we did Susie Q. Or should at least we hinted at it. And the other thing about these chords is that you can start to make these into bar chords. All 5 of these open chords can turn into bar chords. This is the basis for the CAGED method. So in other words, this C chord, if I refinger it as this, I can take that up 1, it's a C sharp, another one is D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Okay, hold on to that because that's going to be useful later. So the next one, C, A. Now I'm not going in the order of the chords in the song, because the chords in the song are C, G. We're going to come back to that. But in the CAGED method, C, A. So the A chord, I can refinger it as a 2, 3, 4, go up to A sharp or B flat, B, C, and so forth. D, D sharp, and E. Now as it gets higher, it starts to get harder to fit all 3 of those fingers in there. So then we do what most people do, and Jimmy did as well, is just taking that 3rd finger and bending it backwards. In this case, on the 5th fret of the D, G, and B strings, or barring across the 3rd fret from the A string down. Okay, this is again from the A to the C, same form. then the G can become G sharp, A sharp, or B flat, same thing, and then B, and then C. Now, very few people play this form because it's such a difficult form for the fingers. But one of the things that Jimi does is he plays parts of this, little bits of this chord, and it's based loosely on the pentatonic scale. So you're going to just hammer on. You're going to actually bar across the 5th fret and hammer on to the 7th fret in most of these. Okay, and it gives you what's called an inversion of the C chord. Now, the C chord that we were going to use, but we started with, was this. Then I can do this based on the bar form of A. And then if I start on this C note, I can go C, D, E, which is a whole step, another whole step. A whole step is basically equal to 2 half steps. Okay, that's an E note, that's part of the C chord. Okay, and I can bar the rest of that C chord across the 5th fret. And I have this inversion, what they call first inversion, because the first, it's beyond the root position, it's the next version starting on the next note in the chord, which is E, first inversion, C chord, right? And then I can go, in the chord progression, we go from C to G. So I could go C to G. Now, this is based on the E form, all right? And, you know, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, A sharp, or B flat, B to C, right? But Jimi didn't usually play it like this. What he liked to do is wrap the thumb over the top of the neck. It took me years to figure out how to do this. Wrap the thumb over the top of the neck, grab the other notes like this. Okay, or at least took me years to master this anyway. But, so, I have my first finger's on the 3rd fret of the B, second finger's on the 4th fret of the G, third finger's on the 5th fret of the D. This is a G chord. Now I can take this up to A, okay, or even up to C if I want to, which Jimi does that as well, even within this song. Notice that I'm like basically jumping between these different versions of these chords, and that's the genius of Jimi's approach. Is that, you know, most people, they find some chords that they like and they stick to them, whether it be the open ones or the typical bar chords. Because most people will do like bar chord C, bar chord G, bar chord D, bar chord A, and then this E, which is again that A form, which, by the way, Jimi did use the C, the D, and the E. But when he used the ones with the root on the low E string, he would use the thumb to the top. Okay. Now, another advantage to this is that I can grab other notes on the top of this chord to embellish the chord to make it sound hip, or perhaps even a little jazzy, if you will. So this is, if I add the pinky to the 5th fret on the high E string for this G chord, I get a G9. Then I can do a G6 here, or a G sus4. Okay. Now again, there's some theory behind this. If you want more information, jump into my school classroom, Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero, on school SKOL, and even get on a call with me and we can talk about it there as well. And this actually will be, I'm actually going to go into CAGED method in my intermediate workshop coming out soon. And in my beginner workshop, I do some very basic theory stuff for you to show you how to build the chords and how to understand chord theory and so forth. Check those out. The beginner workshop I've done in school before, and I'm going to do it again. So, and then I have an intermediate workshop and so forth. So come check those out in my school classroom. All right, so I've got the C to the G, Jimi style, the D, A, Jimi style. I can do an A9, do an A6, and A sus4. And so you can mix and match these. So I could go C to G9, D, A6, or I could do C, G6, D, A9, okay? And all those are valid. Now E chord, I can either do the open E or this one. Now remember that C form we were talking about like this? I said you can make that into a D here or an E here. Sometimes Jimmy will play that as well. Okay? And those are very useful forms that Jimmy uses all the time. And in fact, so we talked about the C, D, here's the inversion of the D. It's based on the G form here. Okay, and same thing with the E. Okay. A lot of times I'll go to that open E. Do a little bit of that low 3rd fret. Maybe do this. Okay, or I might do bend that G a little bit on the 5th fret of the D. Or I might take that pentatonic scale either here and do a little riff there. Or by the way, we can take that same scale and go up to the 12th fret. And we're going to play it up here. We're going to play 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12, 15. Okay? And in fact, I want to say a couple things. So there are many warm-ups that you can pick for today's lesson. One of them is practicing the E minor pentatonic scale, like we already said, but in that extended pattern. Another one could be hammer-ons and pull-offs, like we were just talking about. Okay, that would be like warm-up 1B. So warm-up 1A would be the scale with the extended form, and maybe even this one up here, 12th fret 1. Okay, with picking and hammer-ons and pull-offs. So anyway, 1A is the scale, 1B is the hammer-ons and pull-offs. 1C could be sliding, because we do a lot of that. Sliding from, like, let's say from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret, or from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret, or the 5th to the 3rd. You can experiment with different fingers. I usually use the 3rd finger, like I was saying earlier, and the 2nd finger here. Okay? And you can do that also on this scale. There's a part in the scale and the solo that he actually does that. And the other thing to practice, so you could say 1D, warm-up 1D would be practicing the bends. So the bending on the strings can be really challenging at first. You can certainly start down here or here. We're going to have another lesson next time on that, so stay tuned for that one, come back for that one. But we can bend at the 15th fret on the B string, or 15th fret on the high E, and add vibrato by shaking the note, or on the 14th of the G. So that solo actually starts on the 15th of the B string, and there's a little blues lick, 12 on the E, 15 on the B, 12 on the B. So bending on the G string, pull off. So bend up, release, pull off. So add a little vibrato. Slide. And then kind of slide into that. And some versions uses the open E string. And then we use another bend. So I mute it real quick, and then another one. And then the tricky part about these bends sometimes is the bending them and then shaking them or adding vibrato. Okay. With the obligatory face, you know, like kind of thing, right? But anyway, so you're bending those notes and adding vibrato there, right? And then the next little part, you're gonna bar across the 12th fret on the top two strings, and you're going to play a couple notes at the same time. I usually play that with my pinky on the 15th fret. Again, you can use your third finger if you want, if that's easier. I think Jimmy does that. So a little weird lick there. Open D string, play, and then you play the 14th fret on the D and G, and then 12 on the G. And then we bend a Chuck Berry riff, right? But you only do it once. Bend on the 15th. So, and then we're gonna go to the 14th fret, bend, and then go to the 15th on the B. This is the normal lick that Jimmy plays. I improvised at this point. I my soul there, the last one that I just did, but all right. Usually that's what you do. You hold that 14th fret on the G, bend it, hold the 15th, and then hold on the B, and then hold the 12 on the E. A little vibrato, land on the 14th on the D string. Then we go to this little, sort of like a little bit of an F sharp minor scale, and then go back to the E minor there. Okay, that's the solo. Sometimes you hold those two notes together. It's a good way of checking to see if your bend is in tune. Because this 15th fret bent is the same as that note. 12th on the high E. Same thing if I bend on the 14th on the G. That's the same as the 12th on the B. So it's a good way of testing them. These are also called unison bends, and they're used a lot in Jimmy tunes and other tunes as well. But so. Slides that he does, right? Okay, another warm-up number 2. I know I'm giving you a lot of material today. Pick one and stick with it, and then worry about the other ones later. But warm-up number 2 is to go through this awesome bass line that Jimmy gives you. This was probably the first bass line that I actually learned how to play on guitar, and later on, when I studied jazz guitar, I learned how to do jazz guitar bass lines. We'll do that in another video, but this is pretty cool. You're just going to go from the C on the C chord. So C, E, F, F sharp, G. Now you're on the G chord. Then you go to the B note, which is the third of the G chord. B, C, C sharp, D, which gets you to the D chord. Go to the F sharp, which is the third of the D chord. G, G sharp, A, which is the root of the A chord. Go to the C sharp, which is the third of the A. Let me just give you the fret numbers. Okay, so 3 on the E, or 3 on the A, open E, 1, 2, 3, go to the A string, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the E, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the A, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that gets you to E. So, this is similar to the spider exercise that we did starting on day 1 of the challenge. But this is a little bit more complicated because now we're actually basing this on the chords C to E, which is literally, if you look at a C chord, it has the notes C, E, and G. That's called the triad. Okay, so C, E, and G is the triad, the root, the third, and the fifth. So the third of the chord is that E note, which we can play open. So we go from C to E, walk up chromatically, F, F sharp, and now we're on the G. Now on the G chord, the triad is G, B, D. So we're going to go G, and then start on the B note, second fret on the A, go up chromatically, C, C sharp, D. Now we're on the D note for the D chord. And the root of the D is the D, the third is the F sharp, and the fifth is the A. So the F sharp, we're going to take that down an octave, go here. So F sharp, go walk up chromatically, G, G sharp, A, that's the root of the A chord. And then the triad is A, C sharp, E. So then we go from the A to the C sharp here, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So we do that again. So C, E, F, F sharp, G, B, C, C sharp, D, F sharp, G, C sharp, A, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. If that's too much for you in terms of notes, again, just think about the tab. I'm going to have tabs for this and many other songs we've done in the group on school. So come check that out. skool.com/unleash your inner guitar hero. So 3 on the A, open, first, second, third. On the E, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the A, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the E, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now at this point, once I get to that 7th fret, I'm really at that point really just playing the E. Now Jimmy has this little riff thing that he does there. That E is that A form again that we talked about earlier. But a lot of times he'll take off that 3rd finger and just bar. Okay, and some people interpret it as this. But you can do that as well, sliding from the D to the D. But I think really what he's doing is, okay, and sometimes he goes a little bit up here, which is part of the A chord, the C form, C, D, E, C, E, F, D, A, right? We'll do a little bit of that, and a little bit of the E as well, which is part of this chord. Sorry, G, A, B, C, D, E. And so sometimes he incorporates a little bits and pieces of other chords with the chord that he's on. So maybe on the E chord, I play a little of the A just for color, but returns back to the E one way or the other. Okay. All right. So we got C, G, D, A, and then E here, E here. So you've got a lot of stuff that you could spend time practicing. Start with the open chords first. Get the strum. Down, 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 down. Now even if you just did all down strums, it'd be fine in the beginning. Totally fine. Practice going down and up also. Start with just downs, quarter notes, and eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 16ths, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and Jimmy does all of those different rhythms and combinations thereof within this song. So spend time on each of those. So we got C, G, and start learning the bar chords, C to G, D, A, E. And once you get to the ones with the root, lowest note on the E string, start practicing the Jimmy idea of using that thumb. Okay? Alright, so anyway, have fun with that. It's a lot of material. That's enough for years. Trust me, I've been playing this song for about 30 years and I'm still working on mastering it. So have fun with it. Take it one day at a time. Learn just primarily those chords and then work on the bar chords. Start working on some of those licks. Join my community on school, skool.com/unleash your inner guitar hero for additional help on this tune and any of the other ones that we've done. Again, this is Mel from howtoplayguitars.s.com on day 6 of the Unleash Your Inner Guitar day 6 of the Unleash Your Inner Guitar Hero Challenge, available on school right now, skool.com/unleash your inner guitar hero, and I will see you on the flip side. In the meantime, enjoy this song.